Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? Making this podcast on an Intel-based Mac. You're on your side as well, but it could be soon that we might not be.
Well, it wasn't so long ago that, we never did, but I remember being on Motorola chips when Apple was doing what they're doing again now. So we're seeing history repeat.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get into that, just wanted to touch on another story that came up tech-related, which was in relation to Facebook. Effectively, Zuckerberg, doing a bit of a 180 on his previous stances of, not wanting to get involved in terms of censoring posts that are contentious, but essentially that announcing that they'll flag all newsworthy posts from politicians that break its rules, including those from Trump, following a growing campaign that has seen major companies pull advertising from the platform over divisive rhetoric and hate speech, which is interesting. And I guess it's kind of following what Twitter was doing in a way, but it is a fairly significant thing for Zuckerberg to be announcing something like that, considering his previous stances on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge to see this reversal. Honestly, I don't think what he's suggesting will actually make a lick of difference on Facebook or on Twitter for that matter, but I guess, they're trying to be seen to be doing something.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the reversal, because I do agree with some of what Zuckerberg's been saying, which is they're not the arbitrator of truth. And I think the public has a right to know. So if someone lies or misleads, the risk is that people will believe that lie and act upon it. But I still think that people should have the right to decide. And, it's a fraught minefield. I can't work out what the right pathway is, except you ban all political speech.
I would think so. That may potentially be an option, only because, although in theory it would sound good that you should allow the thing to be said so that it can be digested and responded to accordingly. But it would seem the way it's playing out practically on the ground is that voice that's generating the lie is much louder than the response that's going to it. So in effect, the lie just overwhelms anything that happens, so you're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place with that sort of stuff.
Absolutely, and you can never win, and I think that's the upshot of it.
All right, so we'll change to our main topic now, which is Apple's transition away from Intel to its own Apple Silicon chips. I find it curious that they called them Apple Silicon as opposed to ARM chips, but to be fair, I guess they've been custom-made variants of the ARM chips. But I don't know about you, but I actually found a lot of what they were saying to be quite interesting and exciting. And actually what really grabbed my attention was the fact that apart from the idea that all of their devices were going to be basically running the same type of chips, which effectively means, anything they make software-wise is cross-platform and just integrates all their devices even more than what it has before. The thing that was exciting to me was that they'd also ported a lot of the Pro apps across things like Microsoft Office and Photoshop, Final Cut, all of that. I'd like to say that up front, that they've got them ready to go, was pretty exciting and almost like made it a slam dunk in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I heard the term Apple Silicon and thought someone in marketing had been working very hard for the last 6 months. It's a lovely sounding term, and it's back to the roots of Apple. Probably if you go back to the G4 days and G3 when they were using the Motorola chips and everything was tightly integrated in the Apple system. And of course, it didn't run anything else. But I guess we're going to cover that in a minute.
Yeah.
But they're working on Rosetta 2 to port these apps. And I think we can see where this is going. Everyone's been wondering for a long time, why can't I run the apps on my phone, on my laptop, et cetera, et cetera. This is where Apple's going, and I think it's actually a really exciting idea. And it's once again, in some ways it's a return to Apple's roots, or I see it as a return to Apple's roots of just developing that single, fully integrated system. So everything that you do on Apple is the same on every device. Your app, drawer will be the same on your MacBook if you've still got a MacBook, or, iPad, as it is on your phone, as it is on whatever other device you're running. So, yeah.
And I think what was the most impressive thing about this is that it's no small undertaking what they're talking about doing here. As we were talking about before we got on about the transition from PowerPC to Intel back in the mid-2000s, and the fact that they were able to turn that around in 2 years, although arguably they'd probably been working on it in secret for 5 years prior to that. Just like in this case, they probably, I think it was the iPhone 4 that had the first custom ARM chip that they designed, which was the A4, I think it was called at the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if, not that they'd ever cop to this, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised if even like way back then they thought, oh, maybe we could start tinkering around with this and seeing if we can get it to work.
Yeah, well, I was wondering when I was looking at this story and reading about the conference this week, I was wondering, Apple really haven't seemed to do much for the last couple of years. They've just seemed to have been tinkering, which, when you put it like what you've just said, Ben, maybe for the last 2 years, actually, they've been working behind the scenes to bring forward a fully integrated system. And that will be mind-blowing because that's something that Android and Google and the other Windows systems just won't be able to bring about. So that fully integrated Apple ecosystem, once that's universal on every device, that will be a huge step forward for Apple.
Yeah, and I guess it can't be understated too, just the whole thing about the platforms, etc., and the software all being integrated. The thing that really stuck out to me that was really exciting was the fact that all of those apps were ported and announced on the day. So, Final Cut, Photoshop, Microsoft Office, a lot of the staples are kind of already good to go. And I mean, it makes sense. Like they would have had to have done that before actually announcing anything, because the first question would have been, can I run, all of my apps kind of thing? And if you can't do that out of the box, then there's probably no point in them progressing with this.
And they better run without bugs because it would be an absolute disaster. Can you imagine shifting to a whole new chipset and it being buggy? So I think you're right. They've probably spent the last 12 months, maybe longer, ensuring that when they swap, everything will work.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go back in time a little bit too with this other story. This former Intel engineer claiming that Apple was plotting the divorce from Intel back in 2015 when they released the Skylake chips, and it all kind of went to crap pretty quickly. And I didn't actually realize at the time because I haven't actually owned a Surface device, but apparently Microsoft forged ahead with that particular chipset, and that particular device at the time ran into all sorts of problems. And maybe it was a wake-up call for them that, like you said, them going back to their roots and saying that we like to do everything in-house. We want to do the whole thing ourselves, and that might have been the impetus, maybe, to really push it along.
Yeah, well, I think maybe this also is another symbol of the post-PC era. So we all remember the old, days of Apple with their Motorola and the Pentium chips that were powering your IBMs and your PC worlds, and you think about how that moved, and then probably about the time Apple came across to Intel, we saw 10 years of just incredible progress in the chipsets. The move to dual core, and then the speeds that they were getting on the dual cores and quad cores. But once again, I think chip design has probably plateaued because they're right at the limit of what they can reduce the size of on a chip. So now the battle doesn't move to shrinking anymore or size, it moves to architecture. And if you're going to move the battle to architecture, then if you do own your own hardware company, doesn't it make sense to make your own chips? You're making the rest of your product. And so I think it's actually a very logical. But as I say, I'm quite excited by the idea that Apple's going to make its own chips. That's what I like about Apple.
Yeah, I guess the really exciting thing too is the possibilities of what they could do with the hardware now. Now that all the chips are effectively going to be the same in terms of architecture, and the idea of maybe more modular type approaches. So instead of having a laptop, a set desktop, your iPad or whatever, potentially, you could have, like an iPad-like screen that attaches to a stand, and then that becomes your desktop, or your phone drives, your desktop setup, or or things can detach and do various different things. It's potentially could be quite interesting in that respect, and we could be, even though the initial batch of devices that'll come out will still look familiar, they could potentially start going in directions that are a lot more interesting in many ways, and doing this actually gives them the option to, or gives them more options to work with.
Well, I think you sent me, or I saw the future when you sent me that link to the iPad with mouse and keyboard and someone editing with it, using a full-size monitor. And you just realise, once everything's integrated and once the power goes up on everything, because everything's so small, we don't need big chips or big boxes anymore, and we don't need drives because everything's in the cloud. So, all you will need is a phone and probably another device that's a little bit bigger, whatever that means.
Exactly. Well, I don't know about you, Steve, but I'm curious as to see what the first lot of devices are when they come out. I'll be happy to pick one up whenever that happens, probably another couple of years down the track. But having said that, it might get to a point 3 years down the track when, I don't know, when we're ready to upgrade or whatever, or whenever we do this, that maybe it's not necessary because an iPad will do everything.
Well, let's see. I'm thinking next year is 10 years of iPad, which would be a great time for the Apple marketing team to dream up some huge show-stopping announcement, which we used to see in the olden days.
Maybe they'll resurrect Steve Jobs from the grave, put some clips up, some choice quotes, and have people clapping as normal. And just, I guess, finally, just on that last point, the thing about having everyone clapping in the audience during WWDC, I thought it was actually a welcome change that it was all done without an audience, and they had that slick editing, zooming around Apple Park and everything. They should probably just do that from now on, rather than have the the clapping and the back slapping and stuff that they usually do.
That's just so 1990s, isn't it?
Exactly. All right, I might wrap it up there. So don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds. Watch us on any and all of your devices, and we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.